Well, Gen Z is pissed at us boomers, and I can't say that I blame them. There was an article that came out the other day that said you would have to have 5 minimum wage jobs to live in Austin, Texas, to afford the rent there. It's ridiculous. So, those of you who say, well, back in 1980, I made $15 an hour and I bought a house. Well, guess what? Adjusted for inflation, your $15 an hour that you made in 1980 would now be over $112,000 a year. You know, most young people I meet, they want to work. A lot of people say, oh, the new generation doesn't want to work and they're lazy. No, that's not true. They're smart. They're smarter than us. They just don't want your crappy $15 an hour job. Now, I'm not here to give any answers, but I'm just saying, I feel you, Gen Z. On the other hand, that one young kid who told me yesterday and commented that I shouldn't be on TikTok, get off my lawn, you little...
As older generations, such as Gen X and most importantly boomers, are starting to reach their older years and starting to be able to enjoy these fruits of labor as in retirement or any sort of compound interest within savings. The younger generations, if Gen Z, millennials, most importantly right now, being that these younger generations, these modern generations, are starting to reach their middle ages, they're starting to have a lot of envy. They're starting to feel like boomers are out of touch. And they're starting to have a lot of resentment towards their parents, authority, and overall the government, because they feel like the system that was set up to play, the playbook was not made for them. So in this video, we're going to discuss the whole sentiment that boomers are out of touch and how possibly that's not a very true sentiment, and how not exactly every boomer is out of touch, quote unquote. How some actually get it more than not, and some aren't, season birds flying to Florida for the season and then flying back in the summer. Some of them actually are just like us and have to work for the rest of their days. Well, some of you might say, well, they're crowding up the workforce. Well, I feel like if they could enjoy retirement just like you, they might want to. So if you personally can relate to anything discussed in this video, despite which generation you're from, how old you are, if you can relate to anything discussed in this video, feel free to leave those down below in the comments. I love to go through those and respond to the ones I see fit, as well as a huge shout out to the you guys checking out those links down below in the description. Those are always some of the best ways to support me and the content around here. Now, let's begin the shit show.
We look back at the baby boom generation, it's, oh my goodness, they can't retire. This is the first time in the history of the United States that there are 4 generations in the workforce at one time, because the baby boom generation can't afford to leave, which means that my kids are really having a hard time breaking in and making any kind of money, because the baby boom generation can't retire. They can't afford to. They have to work till they die. They retired with a median amount of money of only $289,000. So for 40 years, every paycheck, they were putting money in there, and they retired with only $289,000. They put all their eggs in one basket in the 401k and like basket. Once they went to draw money out of the basket, it wasn't full. When they retired, it hardly had any resources for them to do anything with. That's a predicament that we're in the United States, and on the cusp of a major market collapse.
The overall idea that boomers are crowding up the workforce, I think, is kind of redundant, because, I mean, the majority of places that I've worked have a hard time filling up their work spots to begin with, or the management doesn't really like to hire many people, so it's not really the workers' fault. It's more so the management is not really trying to cut costs to actually, or they're trying to cut costs, not hire the amount of staff that's actually probably needed for that said location. So, now also the whole idea that Gen Z and millennials are lazy is mostly a Gen Z claim. I don't think that's necessarily true, because I've worked with many older people who are sick of it all and they're tired of working. They've kind of realized that the life that they thought they were sold isn't really for them either. Maybe for their position, they probably made some worse decisions over their life, but still, it ends up not being the case. But it's not that everybody messed up their life. Maybe they had to take care of their family. Maybe medical issues kind of took a lot of their savings. But I guess it is changing that, the boomers did have more of an accessible way to save the money, and they were able to buy these houses for chump change, which a lot of us Gen Z millennials will never be able to do so. So there's a lot of resentment in that regard, as well as the whole idea of having kids and creating a family and a foundation. That's kind of become out of budget per se, which is supposed to be like a promised thing when you're working so hard and doing everything you can to get by. And especially these days, working so many hours, multiple jobs, still never seems to be able to get you by.
The boomers f***ed millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Y. Now, this is not a video to bitch and moan. You can still be very, very successful. With that said, this video is stating facts. And the fact of the matter is the boomers have screwed every following generation. Now, why? Well, Couple of reasons. One, they have put into place policies that have guarded their wealth, mostly in real estate and in the stock market. Secondly, the boomers are the generation that makes up the largest portion of politicians. And those politicians have gone on to spend and spend and spend. Why? Because they know that they are going to be damn well dead before it becomes a problem. So you have a generation that got extremely, extremely wealthy on the back of a booming economy after the Second World War. Then they decided to enact policies like single residence laws, like zoning laws in real estate, and like tax breaks and tax loopholes in the stock market to benefit and to guard their wealth. That has created an insurmountable amount of wealth for boomers in the form of real estate and stock net worth. At the same token, those inflated prices have made it more and more and more difficult for every following generation to be able to afford basic necessities like housing. Now, I'm not here saying that we should completely destroy the real estate market. I'm not here saying that real estate shouldn't appreciate. What I'm trying to say is that when you look at your life and you compare it to people who are older than you, and then they go on and tell you, well, you should work harder, or just get another job, or just work your way through college, or whatever. The fact of the matter is it's not necessarily that person's fault because they probably don't understand. But if you want to do yourself a favor and you want to be able to educate other people, research into the policies that were enacted during the 50s and 60s.
Now, I could be wrong, but I've never really heard a lot of the younger generation complain about working with boomers. It's more so the boomers complain about working with the younger generation. They say we're lazy, we're entitled, we don't really see what the sacrifice entails. And honestly, the labor or any sort of, energy and time that we trade for our said paycheck never really seems to pay off in the long run. So it's leaving a lot of our modern generations to not really feel like the modern day workforce is really worth it, even though it's the only way to get by, and the average person has to have not just one job, but nowadays multiple jobs just to get by, not even live luxuriously, just damn near survive. It's still kind of resorting to the fact where it's like people don't really feel like it's worth it, so they don't really want to go above and beyond, because a few people, especially I've experienced this in many positions and many jobs I've worked at in the past, the people that do end up going above and beyond, they end up getting used and abused, and they end up getting all of the tasks on their task list. Well, they're actually doing like 2 or 3 people's amount of jobs and tasks and workload, getting paid the exact same amount as the people that sneak off to the bathroom 15 times a day, or take a lot of breaks, or call in all the time, and get a lot of these type of, they get a lot of slack for these things. Well, the people who actually are supposed to be there, when I call in, it's like a big deal. But I only call in once every 3 months. But this person that calls in 3 times a month never gets questions. So, but it's because they don't really need them there, because they can just have you and you can just cover for everybody. But then when you try to ask for a raise, it seems as if there's not any money to go around. And who the fuck can live off a quarter raise a year? So that's what a lot of these big companies are doing, and they think that's like okay. Like, I don't understand. Oh, well, it's dark profits. Yeah, no, you've hit record profits year after year, and you can obviously tell because the way they continue to upgrade the infrastructure off of stupid things. We had this weird thing where they had like this hand station where after you wash your hands, it scans your hand to see if there's any like bacteria in it. We tried testing it with like raw chicken and like all sorts of stuff. It didn't pick up absolutely anything. We just literally we spit on our hand, everything. I know it's gross. We tried testing, it did nothing. And now it said, oh, which is really microorganisms. I just think it's just a way to cut costs, and for them to check off another thing for the health codes that low key is just a way to make the FDA or whatever the fuck the health management standard is. That's gonna wrap up this video discussing how boomers might be out of touch and how modern generations might be lazy pieces of shit. But despite which generation you're from, how old you are, or whichever thought you have about this video, feel free to leave those thoughts, opinions down below in the comments. I'm sure some of you guys can relate, and some of you guys might be upset about some of the things we talked about. So either way, I'd love to read through all of them. Huge shout out to him for you guys checking out those links down below in the description. Those are always some of the best ways to support me in the comments around here. Want to appreciate you. God bless. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next one. Bye.